Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur, coming up in the next 1 hour. India's Space Research Organization puts Chandrayaan-3 rover into sleep mode, expected to wake up on September 22nd with the sunrise on moon. Delhi gears up for the G20 Summit. Full dress rehearsals continue for G20 Sherpa meeting begins in Haryana today. Thousands protest in Israel against government's judicial overhaul for the 35th consecutive week. In Asia Cup, rain plays spoiled sport as the match between India and Pakistan called off. Both teams share 1 point each. The Indian Space and Research Organization ISRO has informed that the Pragyan rover module of Chandrayaan-3 has been put on a sleep mode on Saturday. ISRO also informed on social media site X that the next sunrise is expected on September 22nd this year and hoped for a successful awakening for another set of assignments. And now we get to the mega build-up to the G20 Summit in Delhi. Delhi gears up for the G20 Summit. Full dress rehearsals are being conducted ahead of the upcoming mega event. 3 rehearsals were held on Saturday, while 3 more rehearsals are scheduled for Sunday. Authorities advise the public to stay updated on real-time traffic information through the G20 virtual help desk for route suggestions when travelling to or from the airport, railway stations or bus terminals. The G20 Leaders Summit scheduled from 8th to 10th of September may cause inconvenience to the residents of Delhi. Delhi Traffic Police is geared up and has issued an advisory with traffic restrictions in several areas. Commuters have been advised to use metro rail.
Delhi is the second most populous city in the world, according to the latest data from United Nations. And it's one of the most traffic congested cities too, with 10-kilometer journey taking average time of 22 minutes. As the capital gears up to host one of the world's most high-profile events, the G20 Summit, security and traffic management are the top of the agenda for Delhi's police.
In detailed traffic advisory, we will be giving you information about the various types of modes of transport available. The main summit venue is in New Delhi. So there will be restrictions in the NDMC area, or we call the New Delhi Police District, which will be a controlled zone in which the authorized vehicles or the identified vehicles or the identified visitors will be allowed. But in the controlled zone, as well as the rest of the Delhi, metro services will be allowed throughout.
And they are now advising people what to expect. They have set up a virtual help desk to ensure smooth travelling during the summit. It will provide people with information about road closures, traffic flow and alternate routes. There will be no restrictions on travelling by metro except at the station next to G20 venue.
We are setting up ambulance control room, ambulance assistant control room. In field also we have a traffic motorcycle riders who can guide for any green corridor movement. And we also have the special deployment at 20 places so that they can help any emergency movement of any ambulances.
There will be no restrictions for medical staff or for the movement of ambulances and essential services like food and dairy products.
During G20 Leaders Summit,
School, colleges, government and private institutions to remain shut from 8th to 10th September. And with the true spirit of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, or I shall say, the world is one family, India is all set to create a milestone under its G20 presidency, and New Delhi has geared up to welcome G20 delegates. Kriti Vadhera for DD India.
The fourth G20 Sherpa meet will be beginning in the North Indian state of Haryana today, and the meeting will continue till September 7th. Apart from the G20 member countries, Sherpas and other delegates from the invited countries will participate in the high-level meeting. The Sherpa meeting of the G20 Summit is a preliminary meeting of the government representatives before the main G20 Summit. One of India's priorities during its G20 presidency has been to support developing nations through climate finance to help them meet domestic climate goals. Jessica Taneja has more details.
In a poor village, untouched by electricity, miles away from the nearest town, children are learning, reading books under the glare of a lone street light. It was made possible because of this microgrid system. It helps provide clean, affordable and reliable electricity in remote areas where the main grid doesn't exist.
Approximately 100 houses and 40 to 50 shops can be powered by this. It makes houses and markets independent of main electricity grids.
The numbers tell a compelling story. The cost of solar energy plummeted by almost 80% in the last decade. It costs half the price of thermal energy. Offices in the national capital are also reaping the benefits of affordable and clean energy.
We use a 60 kilowatt system. We supply the save electricity units back to the government. We save approximately $6,000 each month in electricity bills.
Although the country hopes to use 40% of its yearly energy from the sun, depending on it entirely for the long haul might run into some bumps.
We need to invest in the technology because we are totally dependent on the imported material. So we need to invest in the technology so that in the next 10 to 15 years, we can be self-sufficient.
For one village, it's a revolution that's come quickly. But this will be a generational shift from thermal power to solar, and that could be a long road ahead. Jessica Taneja for DD India.
According to the United Nations, women and girls remain underrepresented in the digital sector worldwide, from coding and creating to accessing services. The gap limits the job opportunities and also the ability to improve their income. But in Venezuela, a unique project is helping to incorporate teenage girls into the world of science and technology. Correspondent Mary Trini Mena continues our G20 special coverage.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for 17-year-old Gabriela Lopez. Today, she's learning how to fly a drone, but she's also learning about coordination and critical thinking. Gabriela is part of the STEAM Lab, a hands-on learning project exclusively for Venezuelan girls.
We have had the opportunity to do many things I always wanted to do, like basic programming, working with drones. I have always been attracted to drones, but I never was able to have that access.
The goal of the STEAM Lab is to reduce the digital gender gap in a country where the majority of citizens do not have reliable internet access or basic services like electricity. In 2022, 3 Venezuelan entrepreneurs came up with the idea, focusing in 4 main areas: robotics, programming, technology, and biology.
These STEM fields related to science, technology, and engineering generally are dominated by men. In Latin America, only 30% of those jobs are held by women, so we want to increase that figure.
The program is privately funded. All participants were awarded scholarships. For 4 months, girls from middle to low-income neighborhoods from ages 12 to 17 years old received online and in-person training.
This year, 90 teenagers from different states across Venezuela are taking part in the project. Here, they are not only learning new skills, but also putting them into practice.
The young women are encouraged to unlock the mysteries of science, including activities to study plants, human biology, and microorganisms.
All the skills they are learning at the lab are essential for the decision-making process that can be applied in the future.
At the end of the program, students must present a final project focused on finding solutions to local problems, some real, some imagined. One project promotes the use of drones to carry medical supplies in remote and isolated areas. Another considers the development of a new vaccine to fight a future disease. But most importantly, the girls say they have learned about themselves.
We learn to be self-confident every time you take a decision. For example, with drones, you are flying them and you have to be sure that the drone will move to the right.
The lab is helping to shape the future generation of Venezuelan female innovators.
Sometimes we can feel capable of many things, but there are challenges we must face, and we say, yes, I feel capable and I will achieve it. Here, they have helped us to realize that everything is possible.
Next year, the STEM Lab hopes to extend its activities to impact a larger number of girls in Venezuela. In Caracas, Mari Trinimena, reporting for DD India.
All right, so that was about G20 priorities, and returning to our series on previous G20 summits, today we look back at the Toronto gathering of the world leaders. The 2010 summit was important as member countries looked for strategies to grow their economies after the global financial crisis. Urvashi Kapoor has the report on what transpired.
The fourth meeting of G20 leaders was held in Toronto in Canada. Most of the countries were now entering recovery mode from the global economic recession. Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper announced that the theme of the summit would be recovery and new beginnings. However, in the run-up to the summit, major protests occurred in downtown Toronto, which escalated during the days of the summit. The protesters wanted the summit to expand its agenda and address issues affecting the poor. The protests led to the largest mass arrest in Canadian history. To continue to improve the world's economic circumstances, G20 leaders agreed to the following steps. The G20 emphasized on strong, sustainable and balanced global growth as its highest priority. A decision was made to follow through on delivering an existing stimulus plans while working to create the conditions for robust private demand. Implementation of credible and growth-friendly plans to deliver fiscal sustainability was agreed upon. Building a better regulated and more resilient financial system that serves the needs of G20 citizens was stressed upon. However, having failed to reconcile their differences in the Toronto summit, the leaders deferred decisions on most crucial issues to the Seoul summit. Urvashi Kapoor, DD India.
And continuing our coverage of the G20 summit and our in-depth look at some of the member nations' leaders taking part. Now, those who make up the G20 club, who they are and their road to leadership. Xi Jinping is the president of the People's Republic of China. He was born in 1953 and took an interest in politics from a young age. Xi joined the Chinese Communist Party in 1974
and studied chemical engineering at Beijing's
Tsinghua University. He advanced through the CCP ranks to become a provincial official by 1995. He was named the CCP's General Secretary and then the Chairman of the Central Military Commission. Xi has served as President of the People's Republic of China since 2013. You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but on the other side of the break, Taiwan braces up as Typhoon Haikui expected to make a landfall today. Heavy rain and strong winds expected through Sunday afternoon. It is the 35th consecutive week of protests in Israel. Protesters hit the streets of Tel Aviv to revolt against Benjamin Netanyahu's planned judicial overhaul.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Namaste India.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Zari India.
Salam India. Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Muy
Nous
India.
sommes land.
Nahnu Hunud. India. Ma Hindi Hasti. Mung Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti Kaur. Let's get to more international updates. Preparations are in full swing throughout Taiwan as Typhoon Haikui nears. It is expected to make a landfall late on Sunday afternoon and bring heavy rain and strong winds. Firefighters have cordoned off the risk areas and are urging people to stay away from the beaches. Taiwan's two main domestic airlines have cancelled all the flights for Sunday. The military has mobilized soldiers and equipment to help with flood relief and evacuation efforts. Typhoon Saola made landfall on South China's Guangdong province twice on Saturday. The typhoon made its first landing on the southern coast of Guangdong's Zhuhai city and another on the Hailing Island in Guangdong's Yangjiang city. It later weakened to a tropical storm. Following the weakening of the typhoon, production and life in Guangdong have returned to normal, with passenger train services, flights and ferries resuming their operations. From Taiwan, we turn focus to the U.S. now. The United States President Joe Biden traveled to Florida on Saturday to survey Hurricane Idalia relief efforts and comfort the victims of the storm. Biden visited the city of Live Oak, a town that was hard hit by the storm, and met first responders and local officials there. The president also took stock of houses with fallen trees on them. Briefing the media, Biden pointed to this year's extreme weather events and disasters, stressing on the impact of climate change.
Nobody can deny the impact of climate crisis. Nobody intelligent can deny the impact of the climate crisis anymore. Just look around the nation and the world for that matter. Historic floods, intense droughts, extreme heat, deadly wildfires that have caused serious damage like we've never seen before. Just since being president, in 2.5 years, I've flown over more land burned to the ground as a consequence of wildfires than occupy the entire land of the state of Maryland, from down in New Mexico and Alabama all up into Montana and around. It's been devastating.
Heavy rains and storms caused flooding across northern and western Spain after heat waves roasted the country throughout the summer. After the high temperatures of August, the country suffered torrential downpour, which is expected to persist until Monday. On to Russia-Ukraine updates now. In an attempt towards progress, Ukrainian government has cracked down on business magnate Ihor Kolomoisky with huge political and economic clout in the country. The court ordered his police custody for 2 months with bail conditions of more than $13 million. Ihor has been accused of fraud and money laundering and was under the US sanctions since 2021. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked law enforcement bodies for their resolve in bringing long-running cases to justice.
Of course, we will protect Ukraine and return freedom to our entire land. And each of us feels that this will be a Ukraine of different rules. The borders will be the same, democracy probably just as turbulent, freedom one of the largest in Europe as always, but certainly without the long-standing as usual regarding those who robbed Ukraine and put themselves above the law and any rules. And I thank the Ukrainian law enforcement officers for their determination to bring to a just outcome each and every one of the cases that have been hindered for decades. The law must work. It does, it will continue to do so.
North Korea conducted a simulated tactical nuclear attack drill with 2 long-range cruise missiles carrying mock nuclear warheads on Saturday. North Korea's state media said the drill was carried out to warn enemies that the country is prepared in case of a nuclear war. Now this as Pyongyang again vowed to strengthen military deterrence against the United States and South Korea. In a separate report, the Korean Central News Agency has released photographs of North Korea under Kim Jong-un inspecting shipbuilding and munitions factories. Meanwhile, the South Korean military has claimed that North Korea fired several cruise missiles into the Yellow Sea. The cruise missiles were fired in the early hours of Saturday, and an investigation into the launch is underway by South Korean and US intelligence authorities. From the Korean peninsula to Israel now, tens of thousands of Israeli protesters took to the streets of Tel Aviv. The Israelis have been protesting against Benjamin Netanyahu's planned judicial overhaul, and this is the 35th consecutive week when Israelis are again out on the streets. In August, Israel's Supreme Court began hearing the appeals linked to Netanyahu's judicial overhaul, which has moved the country in an unprecedented domestic crisis. Let's get to updates from Africa now. Gabon's new military leader has pledged to return the country to democracy, but has refused to provide a timeline for fresh elections. General Brice Oligui Nguema says the country's state institutions will be made more democratic and their suspension is only temporary. DD India correspondent Isaac Lucando has more from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
Coup leaders in Gabon say they want to avoid rushing into elections that repeat past mistakes. This as pressure mounts to revert back to civilian rule. Crowds celebrated in the capital Libreville as West and Central Africa witnessed its 8th coup in 3 years. Following the coup, military officers annulled the results of the country's latest presidential election. The political contest had seen ousted President Ali Bongo declared the winner, with the opposition calling it fraudulent. Mr. Bongo was subsequently placed under house arrest, ending his family's 55-year hold on power in the Central African state. Regional bloc, the Economic Community of Central African States, says it plans to meet as soon as possible to discuss the latest developments. It is calling on its partners led by the United Nations and the African Union to aid a rapid return to constitutional order. Isaac Lucando in Dar es Salaam, reporting for DD India.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa urged authorities to enforce regulations preventing city residents from unlawfully occupying the apartment blocks. Ramaphosa's statement comes after a fire accident earlier this week in a Johannesburg building that was occupied illegally. 76 people died in that fire, highlighting livelihood crisis in a city down by widespread poverty and unemployment. The building, actually owned by municipal authorities, has been occupied by unknown groups and criminal gangs.
So there are laws that now need to be enforced, and we therefore need to deal with how those people who should not be living there are accommodated. Now, of course, a number of them do not even have permits to be in Johannesburg or in South Africa. So that's an added challenge that we have to deal with. But nonetheless, this has given us a wake-up call, and I have said that our cities and municipalities must now pay attention to how people live. We do encourage people to live in the inner city so that we densify the cities, but we need to do it in accordance with our laws.
And now we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines around the world. People flocked in their thousands outside a French military base in Niger's capital Niamey, asking France's troops to leave the country. After the July coup that overthrew the democratic government in Niger, the military rulers had asked ambassadors of various nations to leave the country. Many Western nations, including France, did not recognize the military junta and refused to follow their orders. Niger has also cut military coordination with French forces. Protesters marched in large numbers through the capital city of Belgrade, demanding the removal of President Alexander Vučić. The demonstrations are the follow-up of a campaign started in May after deadly shootings in the country. The protesters have been demanding that enforcement officials and politicians deliver on corruption issues as well as crack down on violence. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz took a fall while jogging on Saturday. Scholz suffered slight injuries which caused him to cancel all commitments on Sunday. According to a government spokesperson, Scholz has bruises on his face. However, the injuries are not severe. Bill Richardson, a renowned former U.S. diplomat, energy secretary and New Mexico governor, has died at the age of 75. Richardson is remembered for his negotiation skills. The former diplomat made his mark on the world stage by securing release of Americans and others held by various autocratic governments. He also made an unsuccessful bid in the year 2008 to become the first Hispanic U.S. president. Illuminating the night sky, a meteor dazzled the onlookers in various districts in Turkey. Videos captured provided lively visuals of the meteor above the city of Erzurum and Gümüşhane province, lighting the sky in vivid shades of green and other colors. A quick break ahead, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to attend the 20th ASEAN-India Summit and the 18th East Asia Summit in Indonesia. World's largest consumer electronics show has got underway in Berlin. The trade fair expects to see 150,000 visitors showcase the latest innovations in consumer technology.
Uttar Pradesh welcomes to an experience like no other.
Namaste India.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Zari India.
Salam India.
Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Mui
Nous
India.
sommes l'Inde.
Nahnu hunud.
India.
Ma Hindi hasti.
Mung Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti Kaur. Let's take a quick relook at the top stories we're tracking this hour. Indian Space Research Organisation puts Chandrayaan-3 rover into sleep mode, expected to wake up on September 22nd with the sunrise on moon. Delhi gears up for the G20 Summit. Full dress rehearsals continue. 4th G20 Sherpa meeting in Haryana today. Thousands protest in Israel against government's judicial overhaul for the 35th consecutive week. In Asia Cup, rain plays spoiled sport as the match between India and Pakistan called off. Both teams share 1 point each. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be attending the 20th ASEAN-India Summit and the 18th East Asia Summit in Indonesia. The two summits will be hosted in Jakarta by Indonesia, the current chair of ASEAN. The ASEAN-India Summit will be the first summit since the elevation of India-ASEAN relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership last year. It will review the progress of India-ASEAN relations and chart out the future direction of cooperation. Also, the East Asia Summit will provide an opportunity for leaders of ASEAN countries and its 8 dialogue partners, including India, to exchange views on issues of regional and global significance. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 2-day visit to Indonesia starts from 6th of September. And now let's take a look at other stories making it to the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi called on President Draupadi Murmu at Rashtrapati Bhavan. The President welcomed Prime Minister Modi and expressed compliments for success of India's Chandrayaan-3 mission. India's Central Bureau of Investigation filed a charge sheet against 3 railway officials in the June 2 Balasore train accident case for alleged culpable homicide not amounting to murder and causing disappearance of evidence. The accident involving 3 trains left 296 people dead and over 1,200 injured. An infant and a woman were killed and 5 others were injured after a residential building collapsed in Maharashtra's Thane district late on Saturday night. In a step towards inclusive society, a restaurant in Indore district of Madhya Pradesh has introduced Braille menu cards for the visually impaired customers. Good Kripa restaurant launched this initiative in collaboration with the Confederation of Indian Industries Young Indians group, which brought out the original concept. The aim is to make these visually impaired people feel included and invited to such social places and also empower them with acceptance in society. As mentioned in the headlines, the world's largest consumer electronics show has begun in Berlin. The trade fair will be witnessing 150,000 visitors from 130 different countries to showcase the latest innovations in consumer technology. And as DD India correspondent Trent Murray reports, the European event is becoming a focal point for investors interested in exponential growth of India's startup scene. Take a look.
For almost 100 years, IFA Berlin has put the latest advancements in consumer electronics centre stage, bringing together the best and brightest in technology and innovation, and giving a platform for products that could just change the way we live and work.
You'll see, crazy, wacky things. You'll see hopefully 1 or 2 ideas that might change the world. We know that half these startups are never going to make it, right? That's not the point. The point is to ensure that people see IFA as a place where you can come and see innovation.
And much of that innovation is increasingly coming from India. The event seeing a large contingent of companies from the subcontinent. Startups like Bangalore-based Ultrahuman, which is tapping into the lucrative multi-million-dollar wearable sector, attracting international interest and investment.
our product is the Ultra Human Ring, so I'll just show that to you. It's 2.5 grams, super tiny. The idea was to have a wearable that's practically invisible, that you almost forget that you're wearing, but it's keeping track in the background and trying to understand how are you living your life. So now we ship to more than 50 countries across the world. So we started going offline into retail. So the first one was Selfridges in London, and then in Dubai we have Virgin Mega Stores in Dubai Mall and Mall of the Emirates. Dubai Mall gets 100 million visitors a year, so I think the message will get out.
India's economic growth, skilled workforce and pro-business policies means there is a strong sense of optimism for the future trajectory of the tech sector.
The talent pool, the confidence that I see in young Indian engineers, people in the tech space, I mean, I get inspired by it, right? So I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, because these are folks who, they don't think that they have any disadvantage. In fact, they think that, look, being in an ecosystem like a Bangalore or Gurgaon or being in Mumbai, they have huge advantages in terms of creating products for India, creating products for the world, whatever you wish. So I think there's just a lot of energy, there's a lot of vibrance.
With the G20 just days away, world leaders are expected to come together to try and find solutions to some of the world's most pressing problems across health and climate change, peace and security and economic policy. Both big companies here and startups say that technological solutions should be front and centre of those conversations taking place in New Delhi. One thought leader ready to offer her views ahead of the summit? Desdemona, the humanoid robot, who gave DD India her own take on the world's most populous nation.
Namaste. India is an amazing place with so much potential for economic growth. I'm excited to see what the future holds for India's economy.
And what about the question of whether humans should welcome or worry about the changes that artificial intelligence could bring?
I believe robots are here to help humans in many ways. We can help with tasks that are tedious, dangerous, or require precision. We can also provide a unique perspective that can lead to new and innovative solutions.
Thank you very much for your answer.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure to chat about AI and robotics.
While that contentious conversation will likely continue on whether AI will improve or impair the way we live, there is no questioning the disruption the technology is likely to bring across almost all sectors. And in the quest to further research and develop AI, India's growing economic might and track record of innovation means the country has a competitive edge in a field that will likely dominate the 21st century. Trent Murray in Berlin for DD India.
The Nobel Foundation has reversed a much criticized decision to invite Russia, Belarus and Iran to this year's award ceremony in Stockholm. Russia and its ally Belarus were not invited last year, following what Moscow calls its special military operation in Ukraine, while Iran was left out over its human rights record. The award ceremony is held in the Swedish capital in December, the anniversary of the death of Alfred Nobel, the man who established the fund. Dozens of former political prisoners of the Chilean dictatorship met at the former detention and torture center where they were held decades ago. These prisoners observed the 50th anniversary of the coup that began the rule of General Augusto Pinochet. Victims and their families toured the premises of what was once the largest detention camp during the civil-military dictatorship. They also demanded justice for former prisoners and those who disappeared. Tens of thousands of festival goers are stranded in Nevada's Black Rock Desert in the USA. Heavy rain turned the Burning Man Festival campsite into a mud bath. Revelers attending the event have been told to conserve their food and water. US media reported that more than 70,000 people were stuck there on Saturday. Access to and from the event site was closed for the remainder of the event, and more rain is expected in the coming days. Up next, a short break, but on the other side of the break, the Asia Cup match between arch rivals India and Pakistan called off due to rain. Plus, we also check in on the latest players through to the last 16 at the US Open.
Swagatam to Andhra Pradesh, the coastal jewel of India, a state steeped in history. From the Gandi Kota Fort to the majestic Gondapalli Fort, a region known as the Rice Bowl of India, a holy land with rivers Krishna and Godavari flowing through it. Every part of this land tells a story of culture and devotion, and of a modern, developed, vibrant India. The graceful Kuchipudi and exuberant Dhimsa showcase the artistic brilliance of this land. The Ikkat and Kalamkari speak of the talent of artisans and their skilled hands. A cultural concoction that unites people in the spirit of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti Kaur. Time now to get you sports updates. We get you cricket updates first. In the 2023 Asia Cup cricket, the much-awaited match between arch rivals India and Pakistan was called off due to rain at the Pellekele International Cricket Stadium in Kandy on Saturday. Bringing disappointment to the fans, rain played spoilsport as it delayed the start of the Pakistan innings and eventually forced the match to be abandoned. The two sides met after a 4-year period in an El Clasico of cricket. India and Pakistan share 1 point each, and with this result, Pakistan go through to the Super 4 stage with 3 points from 2 games in Group A. Pakistan has decimated Nepal by 238 runs in their opening match on Wednesday, and India will now compete against Nepal on 4th September in Pellekele. India won the inaugural Men's Hockey Asia Cup 2023. India beat Pakistan in penalty shootout in the final in Saulela, also that is in Oman on Saturday. Pakistan led 3-2 at half-time, but the men in blue managed to come back and level the score at 4 each before the full-time whistle. In the shootout, Maninder Singh and Gurjot Singh scored for India, while goalkeeper Suraj Kera saved the attempts of both players from Pakistan, Arshad Liaquat and Mohammad Murtaza. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated the men's hockey team on their phenomenal victory at the Hockey Asia Cup. In a message on the social media site X, Prime Minister Modi said, and I quote him, "It is a testament to the unwavering dedication of our players, and with this win, we have also secured our spot at the Hockey World Cup in Oman next year. The grit and determination of our players continues to inspire our nation." And also Union Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports Anurag Singh Thakur has congratulated the Indian men's hockey team for winning the inaugural Men's Hockey Asia Cup 2023 in Oman.
First edition of men's hockey fight. أبطال بطولة جدة الشديد الآسيوي لخماسيات هوكي الرجال.
And now we talk of tennis. World number 1 Carlos Alcaraz surged into the last 16 of the US Open. It was another stylish victory for the 20-year-old Spaniard, who will face Italy's Matteo Arnoldi in the 4th round on Monday. Italian 6th seed Yannick Sinner also rose to the challenge of a former US Open champion in New York, where the 6th-seeded Italian overcame Stanislas Wawrinka 6-3, 2-6, 6-4, 6-2. Russian 8th-seeded Andrei Rublev also secured his last 16 spot with a 3-6, 6-3, 6-1, 7-5 victory over Arthur Rinderknecht of France. Rublev will play Britain's Jack Draper next. And still with tennis, Belarusian player Aryna Sabalenka beat Clara Burel of France 6-1, 6-1 at the Louis Armstrong Stadium to advance to the 4th round of the US Open on Saturday. America's Madison Keys continued her winning streak, playing her 3rd round match at the US Open. Keys defeated Russian Lyudmila Samsonova 5-7, 6-2, 6-2. Jessica Pegula edged out Ukrainian Elena Svitolina 6-4, 4-6, 6-2 and booked her place in the 4th round, where she will face fellow American Madison Keys. Ace footballer Cristiano Ronaldo celebrated his 850th career goal as Al Nassr secured 5-1 win against Al Hazm in the Saudi Pro League on Saturday. Ronaldo scored his 6th goal in his last 3 matches and claimed 2 assists, contributing to Al Nassr's 3rd straight victory in the league. Ronaldo is the league's top scorer this season with 6 goals, 1 ahead of former Liverpool forward Sadio Mane. Alright, as we wrap up this segment of DD India News Hour, we will show you some stunning visuals of tango dancers performing soothing dance steps in a tango championship in Argentina.
El aplauso para la pareja del centro del escenario, por favor. A tu caprichoso sentir y me pagaste con traición.
Alright, on that beautiful note, we end this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We will be right back with the news as it develops here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.